welcome to another episode of the MHR podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Andy.
And this week we are doing a very special episode in recognition of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we have invited our very lovely colleague Jaime onto the podcast today. Hello, Jaime.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking a little bit about your recent trek that you completed to raise awareness and money for Coppertrek. And we're also going to have a bit of a chat about how we can have more open conversations and better manage these kind of diagnoses and treatments in the workplace. So, first and foremost, tell us everything about the trek. Did you have the best time?
It was incredible. I mean, what Copperfield do is a charity. So they raise funds to educate people on breast cancer awareness in the young. So there was 120 women, and we trekked for 5 days in Mont Blanc valleys. It was just life-changing, actually, life-affirming.
And how was the camping?
I actually like camping. Who knew?
Really?
Yes. Didn't freak out.
That's a very big step. For those of you that don't know, Jaime, you wouldn't put Jaime in a camping situation, but actually, you embraced it. I'm proud of you.
I did.
I'm
Thank
proud
you.
of you.
But it's all for a great cause, and it was
Yes.
something that you made us more aware about. Obviously, we work with you, and a lot of people know you around the organisation for what you've done. But it really helped shine a light on us as a business in terms of the charity that you were working with and what it does and why it was important. So it was a really nice internal education point for us as a company, just seeing what you've done and what you had achieved. And I suppose that's kind of why we wanted to hear more from you today, so we could understand how businesses can learn more about people in their workforce who are very aware of something they're going through, or people who are struggling or need support and are looking to their business for that kind of reaching out hand to go, this is how we can support you in this scenario.
Yeah, and I'm really lucky. Like MHR really have supported me all the way through when I was diagnosed, and up to the trek as well. Like I feel really supported by them. They're always there to, if I need anything or to raise awareness, they'll help me. So that's really good.
You do a lot of talks about breast cancer awareness as part of Copperfield and as part of all the work that you do. And from your experience doing that to businesses or different be it places you work now or institutions like schools or colleges or anywhere that you can get in front of people doing this, what are the main kind of takeaways that you're asking large work environments or schools to go, like, what do you want them to be looking at first? How can they be supporting their employees or their workers or their people?
Okay, so I think it's just to take this the lead from the employee, because when you're diagnosed, you're thrown into a world that you know nothing about. It can be quite scary. And I think it's just taking that faith and trust in that employee that they need to handle it how they want to. So you're there as an advisory. You're not there to tell somebody how they should be or how they should act or what your personal maybe journey has been with a cancer diagnosis. So you just need to make sure that they're supported, that they're able to go to their appointments. And I think also not everybody wants to shout about having a cancer diagnosis. So if somebody isn't comfortable talking about it and they want to keep it within a little bubble, that's okay. And if they still want to work as well, I guess that's a big point, because some people do still want to work through a cancer diagnosis.
I think that's a really great point there about understanding how to respect boundaries, and that's where that education element comes in, as Andy's quite rightly mentioned there. It can be considered a bit of a taboo subject still, and what is the appropriate way of managing a person or persons that is in that situation. And what you've said there about taking the lead from the employee and what they want. What would your recommendation be in terms of what employers could get out of better taking that approach? So what can they gain from being more considerate?
So you have loyal employees. You're retaining that value within the workforce, but also you're meeting those legal obligations as a business as well, because it is a protected characteristic. To be able to. It just makes you look better as a business, I think.
Is there an element there where we need to look at kind of manager training in terms of making sure that we're looking at... Because from what I'm learning from what you're saying is you can't just treat someone the same way as everyone else because you've learned that someone might have a medical condition or a diagnosis and put them down a standardized process. Everyone's different. Everyone's condition will be different. Everyone's scenario will be different. And as a result, they'll want to deal with their own thing in their own way. So it's more of an individual manager to employee relationship. How do we understand what's right for you and what do you need? And how can we support you with that? I feel like pushing someone down a standardised process because a company's decided that's what we do in this scenario isn't actually helpful.
No, and I don't think you can approach it that way. I think everybody is different with how they want to handle it. But as a business as well, you also need to understand that you have got workload that needs to be completed. So it's having that regular interaction with the employee. If they're okay to work or they feel like they're okay to work, can they complete their role in the capacity that they've got it at the minute, or do they need to adapt the way that employee needs to work? And I definitely think that the conversations that like either HR or the managers have, there needs to be quite a lot of guidance given, or maybe like self-education, so that you're not putting your opinion onto that employee, because it can be quite a stressful time. Well, it is a stressful time anyway.
And I suppose there's an empathy element there, which is very tricky because in certain scenarios you may have people that you're communicating this problem to that may have lived through a similar experience. There may be people who completely haven't lived through that experience. And I suppose what's very unhelpful if you've got managers who don't know how to deal with that scenario is them trying to give you advice or guidance from a very ill-informed point of view, which actually doesn't help that person.
Yeah, it's not putting your opinion onto that person,
yeah,
isn't it?
It's having that mindfulness, isn't it? And actually, we've got another episode that we're shooting next week that's all around sort of mental health awareness. And again, having that relationship between employer and employer of being mindful. And that absolutely applies in this sense as well in terms of physical health.
Yep.
Creating and like I said previously, kind of respecting those boundaries. And also just being that ear if that person so wants to have that ear.
Yeah, definitely.
To use. I also think it's important, whilst, we've been talking about what employers can do to better sort of manage these situations, but I also think it's important to shine a bit of a light today on actually a little bit more around the facts that we need to know and how we can better educate ourselves around it. So do you want to just talk us through some kind of facts and figures about breast cancer awareness for the people that are listening?
Okay, so breast cancer is the biggest, the most common cancer in the UK. So there's 55,000 women that are diagnosed every year with that. So if you think of that in terms of the workforce, it's quite a large number of people. Obviously, some people will be retired or don't work, but there's a lot that the workforces can do. There's also 400 men that are diagnosed with breast cancer every year. So it's not just, I think there's this theory around that it just affects women. It doesn't. It affects everybody.
So considering the numbers you've just presented us there, and the amount of people who are being diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, every year, that's a huge number of people who are actively in a workforce that are going to be looking for support from their employer. There are lots of schemes that I know we try to do as an organisation, lots of others, but are there any ones when you've been talking to businesses or things like specific schemes or programmes that you felt are really effective or really useful that you push people towards when they're looking for support?
Yeah, so I used our MHR Employee Assistance Programme. It really helped me. And it wasn't just for me either. Like, my family were able to use that. So they had somebody to talk to if they felt that they, couldn't maybe go to Maggie's or somewhere, because it was at the height of COVID when I was diagnosed. So that really helped. There's occupational health that I think that every company will have if you haven't got an employee assistance programme. And then there's obviously the standard ones, so like Macmillan or Maggie's, they can help, and they also have advice for employers, as well as the person with the diagnosis that they can go on and get information from.
So something that you do so well here is you bring that awareness into our organisation through the charities that you work with. Do you think businesses should be doing more of that by looking at what champions they have within themselves to bring more awareness in? Because I imagine it's way more effective hearing it from someone who has much more of a valid experience rather than having a top-down message. Because otherwise it's just another incentive we've got on our emails. No, we want to connect with people we know about, we care about, and hear how we can learn from them and their experience as to how we can support each other.
Yeah, definitely. Like 1 in 2 people will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. So, when you think about those stats, it's crazy. I I think as long as the employee is happy to talk about things, we should definitely use and utilise that more. There are other charities that you can use to bring in to talk about things, and they definitely should be utilised because there should be an awareness piece, right? I think a lot of the time it's a taboo subject. People don't really want to talk about it openly if you haven't had a cancer diagnosis. It can be a bit awkward to talk about with that person, but 100% we should definitely be utilising those more.
Okay.
I think it's with you know, and again, I think we've touched on this before with more of the mental health episodes that we've done. It's actually just opening those lines of communication and having those conversations.
It is.
So you know, if a person does then go into that situation, they feel comfortable in the knowledge that they have an employer that understands, you know, that you know what needs to happen here or what could happen here. And that they know that they've got an outlet that they can go to, you know, should they need it.
Definitely, and it's also not just about going through that diagnosis, is it? Like it doesn't just end when your treatment's finished. If you go through treatment, it's that constant check-in with the employee to make sure that they're okay and that they're dealing with things.
No, definitely. And like you say, it's the after treatment, it's the ongoing kind of side effects that you get from post-diagnosis and to post-treatment as well. It's ensuring that you know you've got the security with your employer, that that's going to be managed in a respectful and dignified way, I think is the most important thing.
So I think with all those facts and figures and kind of learning from your experience and how you've worked with us here, I think we've learned a lot about what we do as a business. Obviously, we've learned that we're doing some things right, but there's a lot more we can be considering. Hopefully, businesses have also found it useful now looking at what they can be doing to offer more support and raise more awareness. So just want to say thank you for sharing that with us, Jaime, because I know that's obviously personal to yourself, but it's something we're all passionate about, and it's been great to learn more about. So going back to your trek, obviously, everyone here was very supportive. We did a lot of internal communications to make sure that we were supporting you over there.
Yeah.
Can you tell us kind of how it felt coming back into the world of work and like what you've brought back from that trek into this environment?
I think it's quite a hard question actually, but coming back into work, I know that first day was very strange for me. You've gone on this massive trek. It was 5 days of my life, but 6 months of my life working towards getting there. And coming back, I can't explain it. It's something that maybe you'll do it one day. But it definitely changes your life in the fact that you look at things a bit differently. You've been surrounded by 120 women. Not everybody's had breast cancer, but they have a link to it. And just hearing those stories and understanding what people have lived with, it puts things into perspective.
And you were doing it particularly with the charity Copperfield.
I was, yes.
And have you been working them for a number of years?
Yeah, for nearly 3 years now.
Brilliant.
So I volunteer for them as Boobette. So we go into schools and workplaces and educate on the importance of checking your chests.
Amazing. It was amazing to see you do it. We were obviously supporting you from afar. We got all the updates.
Thank you. And to everybody that did.
I was going to say, I think I bored people to death with the amount of times I sent the Just Giving link out. I'd be like, come on, we've got to get it to this next one.
But you absolutely smashed your charity donation.
You did.
We were all really proud of you. You should be really proud of yourself. And just a big thank you to you for sharing this. Thank you for bringing Copperfield into our workplace and educating us as well.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you.
We would more than welcome you back in the future if you've got any more updates for us, how we can educate people going forward.
Yeah,
so
fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we actually have a special producer segment this week in that Jaime is actually one of the podcast producers. So we're going to be getting all of this live on the podcast, which makes me a little bit nervous because we don't know what it is. Yeah. I think
you'll be okay.
I think I'm ready. Oh, I don't know. Go on then.
So, a few questions for you both. Hope you've been listening.
Okay.
There's a few that we haven't discussed here. So,
no pressure, Andy.
I'm listening.
Is this a competition?
Oh, it can be.
Can we
it
make
is
it
now,
one,
isn't
please?
it?
Yep.
Someone's going to lose.
We've got this. You've got this.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've touched on Copperfield today. So they're a breast cancer awareness charity who aim to educate more young people on the importance of checking for the signs and symptoms of the disease. So in 2021, how many young people, which they class as 18 to 24-year-olds, did they reach with their platforms?
Ooh.
18,000.
200,000.
Okay, well, Emma, you're right. Well, the closest, not right. You're way off.
Oh,
So 1,184,700 million people.
that's incredible.
Yeah. Like,
Brilliant.
that's crazy. In 1 year, right? Like, how amazing is that?
My answer
That
was
is
rubbish, wasn't
incredible.
it?
You need to have more faith.
I think I heard
I mean,
another
so do
stat.
I.
No, but I
actually.
don't
That's
think you
quite
realise
ironic.
what the reach is of Copperfield, because they
Very
are
true.
a relatively small charity, but they obviously have an impact. So, following on from that, what is the most common, according to Copperfield, platform for prompting young people to check their chests?
Ooh.
Social media?
Yep.
Oh, I thought we was going to go into the types of social media.
They
Never
didn't
mind.
get that specific, sorry. Okay, so
Can we call it a draw?
Still
I'll
got
let you
more
two
points to win.
decide. I don't want to decide. Okay. So, how many women are affected by breast cancer each year in the UK?
Ooh.
Were you talking about affected or diagnosed?
Diagnosed.
55,000.
I was going to say 50,000.
Yeah, 55. Okay. So, and just touching on a stat from that as well. So, secondary breast cancer is where the initial primary source spreads to another part of the body, which it then becomes incurable. So, there are a lot of women living with that in the UK. How many do you think there are?
Ooh.
I'd say about 60,000.
I'd say 120,000.
61,000.
There we go.
Andrew.
Must have
These
dripped
are
in my
fun
head there, haven't we?
stats. I mean, I do talk about it a
Andrew.
lot, so
I'm listening.
maybe. They're my questions for you.
Can I call it baby brain?
Um,
Okay, I think you've beat me on that one.
Okay. Well, we've both learnt a lot from Jamie, so we owe it to you,
Definitely. We're all winners here, really, deep down.
but mainly me.
Oh, stop it. Oh, but no, thank you so much for joining us this week. Again, we really enjoy doing these special podcasts. And Jamie, thank you so much for joining us.
thanks, guys.
And, sort of going through some of those stats and recommendations of what employers can do to better support, employees that may be going through that situation, be that directly or inadvertently through, a family member or a friend. What we're going to do for this episode is we are going to put some resources into our text on the podcast. So we'll put some references in for the Copperfield charity and the work that Jamie and the Boobettes do to put out more information and education around breast cancer for both men and women. In the meantime, we'll see you again next week where we'll talk more all about the world of work in HR, payroll and finance. I've been Emma.
I've been Andy.
See you next week.
Cheers.